then what we must do is mobilise as never before to get civil society out there and say, the hell with you guys, this is what we need, this is what we demand. You have proved yourself to be completely useless, not just in terms of the policies you've suggested, but in terms of the processes which have shut the world out. Now, okay, I understand that 50,000 people can't get round the negotiating table, but there's just been no official contact, no official means by which feedback can take place into the process.
And there are ways to do that with the World Cafe or many different ways to take that information in and funnel it and get it to people. But
they have been so unimaginative, so incredibly unimaginative. It breaks my heart to see what the potential is, and by comparison, these ancient processes. You know, it just reminds me of these engravings you see of the Berlin Treaty or something. You know, with these guys in
Churchill and Marshall and
going way before.
Or before that,
that's right. With you know, these enormous moustaches and these gold braid epaulettes.
Boss tweed.
That's right. Exactly. And all these great sort of medals all over their chests and things. And you think nothing has bloody changed. You know, they're in suits now. You know, maybe they're not quite so pompous and they haven't got moustaches, but you know, apart from that, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And yes, the developing world is in there, but they're still talking about dividing the world up. It's just on different lines.
Speaking of that, the one thing that may come out of the conference and get passed is RED. Give me your thoughts on the deforestation issue and how that's being handled.
Yeah, well, in principle, RED could be a really good thing. In principle, we could have a policy which says, right, we're going to stop deforestation because that produces an enormous amount of carbon emissions going into the atmosphere.
17% a year.
Something like that, yes, exactly. I mean, trees...
That's equal to all the transportation on the planet.
Exactly. And trees are basically sticks of wet carbon. You know, you cut them down, they dry out, turn into dry carbon, you burn them, and you've got carbon dioxide. You oxidize it. You know, it's as simple as that. That's how simple it is. That's how basic it is. And as we know, coal is just fossilized trees. You know, so that's a fossil dried carbon from the trees. So it's the same process completely, but in this case, you know, we're doing it both above and below ground. So yes, you know, stop. If you want to leave fossil fuels in the ground, you've got to leave forest standing as well. You know, both those two components, they're both effectively have the same result. But the problem is that very simple idea of a treaty to keep forests standing, which is one of the very few sensible ideas being mooted here, has been completely confused and corrupted by vested interests.
Trading.
By carbon trading, who say, well, we're not just going to leave them standing, we're only going to leave them standing in exchange for us being able to pollute in the rich nations. And you say, well, no, sorry, that doesn't add up, because you know, the whole idea is that we have to cut our emissions from where they are today by a certain very high percentage, 90% or more, if we're going to have a high chance of avoiding 2 degrees warming. And now, not cutting down the forest is great, but it doesn't reduce your current actual emissions of carbon dioxide, because the forests you haven't yet cut down aren't currently releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and it's only if you cut them down that they do. So you can't balance that up against real carbon emissions which are being produced now in industrialized countries. It shouldn't be a choice between whether we save the forests or stop burning so many fossil fuels in the rich world. We've got to do both. It's been complicated even further by the demand of some countries that plantations are counted as forests.
Monocrops and GMOs both.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And you know, if that's the case, then you could actually create an incentive because of if the price is right. In other words, you know, there's profits to be made from cutting down forests and replacing them with plantations. You get quite a lot of money that way, because you can sell the original forest for logs, and then you've got your plantation crop which you can keep selling. And if there's also money to be had from counting plantations as if they were forests and getting carbon offsets from your plantations on top of it, then you've got a very strong incentive to continue deforestation and replacement of plantation.
The only thing missing is giving them a subsidy.
Yeah, well, that happens as well.
That would probably happen.
Right.
The other thing that they've taken all the meat out for protecting indigenous peoples and forest peoples.
Yeah.
That one really bothered me. To see the potential impact there. I mean, they're already talking about, like, it's really great that they're going to put aside 5% to go to the forest people. Wait a minute. They've been protecting those forests for thousands of years. We're the ones that destroyed it, and now we're going to give them 5% of the wealth that we create by creating this crazy instrument from Wall Street. It's another Wall Street boondoggle.
Yeah, well, that's right. And
however, it may be the only thing we get, and it may be the only thing that we could build on between now and Mexico City. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
It's going to be Mexico City, is it? Do you know that for sure now?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of ironic, this, because the last major world talks substantially to fail, to collapse, were the World Trade Talks in Doha. They started in 2001. 8 years later, they still haven't been resolved. They're meant to be resolved within a few months.